the few protocol. What we are trying to establish is an intergenerational wealth engine, which will be referred to going forward as the few protocol. This is about permanent abundance, the ability to see waste as a resource, time as an investment that can and does secure and grow wealth. Intertwine disciplines with areas of focus to create small microeconomies insulated against immediate supply chain, energy, or disaster caused interruptions. Food, energy, home, and water are basic needs for most life forms, and creating and caring sustainably for these things are critical to the health and prosperity of our world. Let's look at some of the components of the few protocol. So, first letter, of course, is F: food, forest, and fuel. Next, we go to E: energy, enterprise, engineering, exploration. Next, H: home, health, habitat, horticulture. Lastly, and most importantly, water, waste, wetlands, and wealth. Now let's flesh it out. Forests are used for enterprise, balancing the health of all in the environment while capturing waste for use beneficially to power these enterprises, ensuring the health of the forest enterprise and the entire system as a whole. Fuel crafted through engineering for maximum output and non-toxicity in relationship with a bountiful habitat, including and harnessing wetlands as green fuel and food production zones via water storage and biomass. Fiber production for clothing and usage in the exploration of all things sustainable, with horticulture approached from a productive permaculture living biome viewpoint, while viewing the entire homestead as a intergenerational wealth engine for the stewards of the land and the environment. I know that all of that sounded a lot when I first started off, and you may have not been able to connect the dots, but now we see the few protocol as a whole is an ecosystem onto itself, and it has the acronym of few because up until this point, the few are the only ones who controlled all of those things. But I have proposed that it is time now for the many to control what the few always knew was the most important things. So let's talk about the first tenet or the first pillar of the few protocol. It's going to be food, forest, fuel, and fiber. Now, of course, these are things that are basic in structure, origin, and what they need to do. It can also be said that all of these things are a form of food. It's all a form of fuel. It's all a fiber. It has texture. It has presence. So we want 100% green energy greenhouses, geodesic, earthship, shipping container, upcycle, 3D printed designs. We need to come up with these prototypes which can be produced in a expedient manner and put into production. We want to study, install, manage, compare the pros and cons of these particular different ways that we want to build. We want to say, hey, if we take and break down an old greenhouse and we use all of the old material, we are able to cut costs on what we would have to go out and buy versus building a geodesic, versus building an earth ship, versus building a shipping container style greenhouse. We want to be able to create these enclosed growing areas to insulate crops that are going through what can only be called a crisis right now. Bananas, coffee, cacao, the blights that we're having. We need to be able to shift the growing areas to places where we can mimic what's going on in that tropical zone, that equator belt region, the rainforest belt region, and be able to do it using green energy and of course, using green means of construction. Inside of these greenhouses, we need to start producing poultry, fish, utility insects such as black soldier fly larvae, and be able to take some of this protein, high quality food for ourselves, high quality fertilizer, high quality food for other animals. We also need to integrate an aquaponic, hydroponic irrigation system where we're using potable water from the entire homestead. Gray water, we're using gray water that we've collected, and we need to be able to integrate that into the usage of keeping the greenhouse at a certain humidity. We need to make sure that the entire greenhouse is being powered by on-farm energy creation, on-farm waste usage, geothermal, the green energy produced at the ag site, consistently using in-ground, above-ground hybrid designs, giving a full 4-season growing cycle for whatever we need to grow, where we're having it summer, spring, consistently, eternally. Next, we want to talk about silvopasturing. Now, silvopasturing is the art of using your forest as your pasture. And this is where we get into the creation of food using the forest, creation of enterprising using the forest. We want to be able to take nut trees, fruit trees, and integrate that into a pasture/woodland system where we are rotating animals like pigs, ducks, geese, chickens, alpaca, hybrid cattle, and also giving some of this land to the wild animals such as our elk and our deer dwell at the alpine homestead. We want to find different ways to deter wildlife from eating freshly planted saplings to manage wild pigs. And we want to make sure that we're looking at the silvopasture as another place that could produce fuel, different types of pine needles that we may be able to harvest for oil, things of this nature. Food, fiber, and fuel-bearing livestock and crops. Breeding animals and plants for many usage, not just meat, fiber, fuel, food. Crossing animals and plants for drought, heat, and cold tolerance. Yak, sheep, goats, alpaca, pigs, cattle, poultry. Creating a grassland biome that uses regenerative grazing as a model to produce food, fuel, and fertilizer. Plants that can produce food, fuel, fiber, and fertilizer. That concludes the F portion of the FEW protocol. Now we go on to E, energy, enterprise, engineering, and exploration. Construction and management of a microgrid hybrid energy system for homesteads with high energy needs. So this would be a conjunction of biogas, micro hydroelectric, thermal mass such as sand batteries, gravity batteries, flow batteries, solar to create a robust system that can power multiple enterprises, rural businesses, or homes. So in this time of energy insecurity, there is a plethora of different options on the table. One of them is called a sand battery, where you actually heat sand to high temperature, let that high temperature stay, and you use that heat to heat your home. You can also use it to generate electricity if it's just not as efficient as using it for just radiant heat. So imagine driveways that never get snow on it because you're using sand batteries, power to keep it warm, roads, concrete yards for livestock, houses, businesses, and all you're using is the heat from sand, which has been heated up with sustainable energy, green energy, solar, micro hydroelectric, wind turbines, biogas from methane digesters or biological digesters, which digest waste and turns it into energy. It can also be turned into liquid natural gas, which can power vehicles, which we'll go into the next portion of the energy or enterprising engineering, where we want to refurbish existing internal combustion engines into full electric vehicles, or a combination of biogas, straight vegetable oil, biodiesel, ethanol, gasoline, hybrid plug-ins. All it would take is kits that are already available on the market. We would slowly start developing our own kits, going into any wreckage yard, pulling out the cars that are still salvageable, or even just the parts that are salvageable, and putting together vehicles that will last longer than internal combustion engine vehicles. They will be manufactured on US or local soil. The products that you need to keep it running will be able to be foraged/salvaged for. And we're moving away from a consistent return to gas-powered, fossil fuel-powered vehicles. We need a new change. We also want to construct and manage rural and urban EV and alternate energy charging refuel stations. We want to become leaders in the construction of refuel stations, recharge stations. We want to start a recharge, refuel culture built around commerce is taking place there. There's little stands, there's little restaurants, there's little pop-up booths while you're waiting for your car to recharge, where you're getting your biodiesel or your straight vegetable oil or your liquid gas, your liquid natural gas into your vehicle so you can continue with your journey. Home. Okay, habitat, health, horticulture. We want to economize and condense the home building and acquisition process, streamlined for home owners that want to be builder owners, or in the foreman on the job. Even if they're not building it themselves, they are the ones who hire the crew, and they have their plan and they know exactly what needs to get done. They know what should be on budget, what may not be on budget because of certain issues, be it earthship, 3D printing, shipping container, prefab building. We will have tested the feasibility of making these into concise, quick, net zero, compact options that should have no problem passing any local permitting guideline. We want geodesic earthship, shipping container, upcycle, recycle products, 3D printing methods that can get the job done with a skeleton crew of professional tradespeople, the owner builder if they need to be on site, or the foreman. And we want to see times go from months to weeks. Houses done in weeks, because it can be done and it needs to be done at this time with the housing insecurity, keeping housing affordable and efficient. We need green roofs. This gets into the horticulture part. Green roofs, green walls to be essential and necessary designs. Water features for heating, cooling, and air conditioning management. The growth of plants that have definite positive health benefits inside of the environment. We want to make sure that the living environment is used medicinally and beneficially in the landscape. Last letter of the FEW protocol, which is W. So we need well installation and groundwater management, efficiency and innovation. And we want to helm the actual, we want to helm the ship of attempting to get this done. And our story is very, very common in the Western United States, but our 20-acre land up in Modoc County is currently on a 2-year waiting list to get a well. That's how long we have to wait because of the laws that are in place that makes it illegal for a landowner such as myself to drill down more than 20 feet to get water. And I could possibly hit water at 20 feet, but that's what we want to do experiments on. We need the equipment to be able to try to do that. But we want to update the well installation management and guidelines that our state and possibly and hopefully we could get it done around the country where this needs to be a standardized thing. It can't be based on where your water region is, if you're water rich or water poor. Access to water is a human right. It's a basic necessity. And you can put guidelines in place to make sure that it's done correctly and you're not taking advantage of the environment. But to outright say you can't unless we say you can, it has to stop. It has to end. Experiments in hydrological extraction, management, and conservation start the construction of artificial glaciers, management of those. So we'll be doing research into that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Wetland and riparian installation repair for integrated homestead waste management. Very important. Wastewater can be treated and used in a beneficial way for wetlands and riparian zones. Artificial glaciers, stupas, as a water account management system, and to hopefully treat glacier mitigation. Every year we have a quote-unquote great water. Every other year or every few years we have a great water year. And it seems we forget that we are actually still inside of a drought. 2 good rain seasons does not take you out of a drought, no matter how many percentages above your normal you get. I cringe every year I hear our meteorologists and our water people say, well, we had a great year. It takes multiple years of great water years and above average water years. So creating stupas, actually taking water when it's freezing, spraying it onto a pre-built structure, and creating glaciers which can be used as water savings accounts. Ironically, it can also be used to keep ponds cool where you're going to be raising fish like salmon or trout, which we are planning to do. So this is what we want to do. We want to be the first creators of stupas in the United States, or at least on the West Coast, where we're actually building our own glacier. We want to show that building and construction of wetlands and ponds is critical for the infrastructure of the whole planet, and definitely for rural, suburban, and even urban America. We want to show and explore the usage of water as in wealth or equity / collateral that can be put into the calculation of the wealth or the worth of a property. So that was the FEW protocol. So what are we asking for and why are we asking for this? Our stage 1 funding. Basically, I've capped that at about $10 million. It's what we need to get started. But anything that you're able to give us, we will be able to put to use. So this is what we're trying to do. Settling the debt owned on the urban homestead, the demolition of the current property, the repurposing and salvaging of the components, and the construction of a tiny on-site urban homestead, which will provide homes for 4 families. It'll also be the site of our urban homestead center, which will be a greenhouse. It will have a small pond. It will have a micro orchard. There will be chickens. There will be aquaponics enclosures. There will be a place where people can come to the city and see what the country has to offer. We also want to acquisition adjacent properties to the urban homestead as well as the alpine homestead to support our livestock for winter pastures and for 4-season growing, building, an all-energy hybrid experiment in permaculture build-out. We want to get into planning and permitting phases for SB 9 and SB 10 for basic planning and construction of 4 to 10 green housing units, which will be placed at the urban homestead, where we are going to create the first green HOA, where you're able to actually rent or buy, pay an HOA fee, where we continuously upgrade energy systems, our water catchment systems, the landscape with infrastructure installation at the Grown on the Range Alpine site, salaries of the management and contractors, legal counsel, documentation, accounting, banking, prototype design and fabrication and patenting, livestock and equipment vital for the fabrication, transportation, management, training, production, travel, in order to be able to visit sites that have achieved net zero grid positive status, and to learn and make sure that we can scale this from a single family home to a homestead, to a community, to an entire country. And our grand aspirations is an entire planet. So with that, I want to thank you for watching the Few Protocol. Now is our time for action. For far too long, the few controlled the many. Now is our time to rectify this.